It was the foul smell that hit them first, a stench that lingered in the air long after the woman had gone. But it wasn't the scent of spoiled fish, no, it was something darker, more insidious, something that left a chill crawling down their spines. And yet, every villager still lined up for her fish as though it were the freshest catch from the sea. If only they knew what Eniola was really selling to them. The sun had barely risen over the sleepy coastal village of Iseyin, casting a soft orange glow over the thatched roofs. The market was still quiet, save for the occasional clink of a vendor's bell or the chatter of an early riser. But this morning, something was different. A woman stood at the edge of the market, where the road met the river. Her stall was new, draped with brightly colored cloths, and at the center of it sat a large wooden tub filled with glistening fish. The villagers had never seen her before, and she appeared almost out of place, like a shadow in the sunlight, her dark eyes hidden beneath a white straw hat. Her name was Eniola, and when she spoke, her voice was as smooth as honey. Fresh fish, freshly caught from the river, she announced, her tone like a promise. The crowd that had begun to gather around her stall couldn't resist. People came forward, reaching into their bags, pulling out coins with eager hands. But there was something unsettling about the way they seemed to ignore the unease in the air, as if a part of them was already bewitched by a charm. The first bite was all it took. It always is. Obi, a young fisherman who had lived in Iseyin his whole life, was the first to try the fish. He had heard rumors of the new fish vendor, and when his cousin Taiwo, always the curious one, insisted on buying some, Obi couldn't resist the challenge. He wasn't the kind of man to be easily swayed by pretty words and smiles. He took a piece from the fish, its meat soft and delicate, the flavor unlike anything he had ever tasted. For a moment, he marveled at its richness, but then his stomach twisted with discomfort. He tried to ignore the sensation, telling himself it was just his imagination. But as the day wore on, he began to feel a heaviness in his chest, a nagging sense that something was terribly wrong. His thoughts grew muddled, and he couldn't seem to focus. A faint voice echoed in his head, and then, his vision blurred. As the days passed, the village fell under an eerie spell. One by one, villagers came down with strange illnesses, fevers that couldn't be cured, headaches that wouldn't end, and dizziness that made the simplest task feel impossible. And no matter how many times they asked the local healer, no one could find the source. But Obi was certain now, it was the fish. That mysterious, beguiling fish. Something isn't right about her, Obi said one evening, after a long day of struggling to clear his head. He sat on his porch, watching the sun dip beneath the horizon. That woman is hiding something. Eniola's fish were everywhere. No one could resist them, men, women, even children lined up to buy from her stall every day. There was always something magnetic about the way she spoke, her smile, her presence. It was as though she had an unspoken power over the village, and they were all too willing to submit to it. But Obi wasn't fooled. He watched her from the shadows one evening, after the market had closed. He followed her to the edge of the village, past the river and into the forest. His breath quickened as he crept through the underbrush, careful not to make a sound. Eniola had stopped by the riverbank, her hands moving in strange, deliberate gestures. Obi's heart skipped a beat as he saw her pour something into the water, something dark, swirling, like ink. She whispered words in a language he didn't recognize, and the water responded, rippling unnaturally. Then, as if sensing his presence, Eniola turned, her dark eyes meeting his in the darkness. "Curious, aren't you, Obi?" she said, her voice not the sweet, reassuring tone he was used to. Now it was cold and sharp. He stepped back, his mind racing. "What are you doing? What are you selling to them?" Eniola's lips curled into a knowing smile. "What they don't know won't hurt them. But you're different. You can see it, can't you? The fish, they are not from the river. They are not from the sea either." Obi's stomach dropped. He took a step forward, unable to tear his gaze away from her. What do you mean? What are you really selling? Eniola let out a soft laugh, but there was no humor in it. The fish you eat, Obi, they come from the dead. The souls of those who once lived in this village, the ones who disappeared, the ones whose bodies were never found. They are bound to the river, forever. I make a bargain with them, their souls feed the living. And in return, I gain power. I become more than I ever could have been. Obi staggered back, a cold sweat breaking out on his skin. You're using them, using their souls. Eniola nodded. I sell their souls for coin, for favor, for control. And the villagers? They feed on the souls without even knowing. They grow stronger, richer, but they lose a part of themselves every time they eat. Obi knew what he had to do. He couldn't let this continue. The village, his people, his family, all of them were in danger. He rushed back to the village, his heart pounding. As he ran, he could feel the weight of Eniola's curse bearing down on him, the eyes of the soul she had claimed watching him from every shadow. When he reached the market, he saw her once more, her stall open and her smile still as sweet as ever. The fish, so innocently laid out, waited to be sold. But Obi knew what had to happen. He had to stop her. With trembling hands, Obi pulled the small knife he had kept hidden and approached her stall. He didn't speak, couldn't speak. Instead, he rushed forward, plunging the knife into the fish barrel, slicing open the first fish he could find. The water that spilled out was dark, like blood. Eniola's eyes widened in disbelief. You fool, she hissed. You have no idea what you're doing. But Obi didn't stop. He kept cutting into the fish, each slice releasing more of the dark water, more of the souls trapped inside. The ground beneath them trembled. The air grew thick with the cries of the lost. And then, as the last fish was opened, the village was silent. Eniola let out a scream, a wail that echoed through the market, but it was too late. The souls had been freed. Obi stood there, his breath ragged, as the first rays of sunlight broke through the clouds. The village was safe, for now. But the shadow of Eniola's curse would linger, as shadows always do. And as the villagers began to stir, oblivious to the battle that had just been fought in the darkness, Obi knew that life would never be the same again. But sometimes, knowing the truth is the heaviest burden of all.